possible. It's a little bit complicated, but we'll just see if we can make it simple. Alright, let's get right into it. Tab to hide and show. F takes you into different modes of full screen toggle. Control N, new document, 1920 by 1080. So you've probably got your workspace sent to something more like essentials, or reset essentials, possibly something more like that. I've set mine up with my layers down the left and all my tools down the left, just because that's made it easier for me. You can obviously drag everything around how you want it. Okay, so we're going to start by making an ellipse tool. An ellipse, that's U, and Shift U to toggle through the different shapes. Just made that, we'll make it grey. And we're going to fill the background layer as well. So now I've got those two, I can align them. Align all to top, and then align to center. Align to center. Now we're going to try and make that metal pattern we saw. So I'm going to just turn this black shape into a smart object. I've got that set to a keybind. You should look into doing that as a keyboard shortcut. If you don't, it's there. Layer, objects, convert to smart object. I'm going to go to filter with that layer selected. Filter, render fibers. Okay, got a load of noise. I'm going to apply another filter, blur, radial blur, and set that quite high up in the spin setting. And I've set mine to best quality, so it takes a little bit longer. Now we're going to double click on that layer to access the layer styles, and we're going to apply a gradient overlay that looks like this, a stripy one. I'll just show you how to make one of those. Just take a basic one, set it to angle. You see you've got this angle there. Reset alignment should drop it bang in the center. If you double click this, you want to end and start with the same color. So I'm going to pick a gray. I'm going to copy that into the, and click on the timeline to make another, not timeline, sorry, gradient line. Make another little node on there. I probably want to avoid pure black for this instance, but I'm going to just be like grays, lots of different grays, not quite white either. It's probably a little bit too contrasty. And that's kind of looking the way I want it to look. Like a brushed metal texture. So I'm going to duplicate that layer, Control J, and put it above this ellipse layer. Now I'm going to put a clipping mask. Clipping mask, create clipping mask, Alt Control G. So I'm going to click on that top layer, Alt Control G, and it makes this little arrow, which means it's now cut out on that shape. Just notice that shape's got a stroke. I'm going to get rid of that for now. Now I'm going to apply some layer styles to that shape. First of all, I'm going to give it a drop shadow. This one's got quite a bit of noise on it. I might want to reduce that. So I'm going to keep one drop shadow quite close. And I'm going to make another drop shadow a little further out. And then you could always do a third if you wanted, depending on how many light sources there are in your imaginary world you're making. So this is an inner shadow on the inside edge. I'm just going to turn the background on so you can see that. So the inner shadow there, I'm using it not as a shadow but as a highlight, and it's attached to global light at the moment, as with all the shadows. So you've got that lighting rig now basically set up. I quite like that, so I'm just going to stick with that light source for now. Now I'm going to make that record button. I'm going to go to rounded rectangle tool here and just drag a rounded rectangle shape into existence. It's come up inside the clipping mask here. I don't want that. I'm just going to drag it out of that layer, above that layer, and it should come out of the clipping mask. If not, if it's in there and you don't want it to be in the clipping mask anymore, Control Alt G unclips it. So I'm going to duplicate that layer, Control J. I'm just going to make it the one on top bigger, and you're going to see the rounded rectangle is altered there. So I'm going to click on Properties, just come out of that transform by hitting Enter, and then just roll them up to the max so that they're round again. So I've got one bigger shape outside the smaller shape. I'm going to just select that with the white arrow, which is A, and then hit backspace to delete it. I'm going to make that have a stroke. I'm going to get rid of the fill on that, and I'm going to bump up the stroke so it's about 50 for now. That seems fine. I'm going to click on this little line here and make the caps round. Okay, cool. I think I wanted that shape to be the same as the stroke, and I'm going to make that smaller so it fits inside a bit more neatly. So I'm just going to edit the stroke so it comes down with the A tool selected. I'm going to drag over those 2 points, just drag them down. So this is a bit of icon work here. So I'm going to press Control R to get the rulers up. There they are. I don't know what was happening there. I think I was getting the rotation tool come up. Something to do with my full screen mode, sorry. I should reset my workspace right now. That was not what I was intending. Okay, so here with the ruler I can drag a guide out to the edges, and with that selected I can see the central point there, so I want to drag a guide out for the middle for now. Okay. All those different guides and things you get up can be found in the view folder. Sometimes everything's hidden and I find that very confusing where the central point is and things like that. If I want to rotate it, I want to be able to see that. So that's there. If you untick that, it's very hard to find little dialogue that, but yeah, the center points, the anchor point's really handy. So with the pen tool, I'm going to draw the stem, the center point down, and I'm going to draw out from those outer guides. Now because this has got a cap on the end, it doesn't actually end where the stroke ends, so I'm just going to bring that in and use the arrow keys to just do fine adjustments. Oh, I went down there by mistake. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the sort of icon design you might do in Illustrator. You might choose to do that in Illustrator, but for this tutorial, for this documentary, I'm going to do it in Photoshop. Keep it simple, simpler. Okay, I'm going to turn those into a group once I'm happy with it. I think that just was poking out there. Okay, and I'm going to turn that into a smart object. I'm going to put that in the middle of the screen using the alignment. V, move tool. With that selected, the alignment tool should come up. And that's your basic record button. Now I've applied some swanky effects. I used a pattern overlay and I picked this square pattern that we used in a previous tutorial. I shrunk that right down. I applied color over the top of it, the red. I gave it an inner glow, a dark inner glow, to give it a bit of form, give it a bit of shape. A little inner shadow. And I do want to use global light there. If you start messing around with this, it'll change the global light on everything, which is fine, but you want to know what you're doing. If you uncheck it, you can just move it around, but I do want to use global light, so keep those in sync for now. And that's kind of that. So the fancy stuff gets a little bit more fancy. I'm going to just duplicate that layer for now. I'm going to apply a blur from the blur gallery, an iris blur. For some reason it started rather big here. I should be able to bring it in. So the blur is set to 15, and I'm going to bump up the light bokeh and the color bokeh. This layer must be behind the layer I'm affecting. Oh no, it's not. I know what it is. I need to make that layer, so I'm going to delete that smart filter. I'm going to turn that into a smart object again, okay? Because right now the effects are on that. I need to affect those effects with my smart filter. I know it's a thing. Blur gallery, iris blur. So hopefully now I can start to get that burn effect on the light that I wanted. I can make another pin. You can play around with this tool until you're happy with it. Try reducing the blur effect so that you can get the most sort of convincing effect that you want there. I mean, it's kind of the effect you get with brake lights. Well, that's what I'm going for. That kind of refraction of the like sort of plastic surface inside a display light. When you're happy enough with that, you can hit OK. So it's blurred the edges of that, which I didn't really want, so I've just got a layer behind it for now. And obviously I'm going to just copy that layer style. I had another shape going on, so I'm just going to duplicate that shape and duplicate those as well. Drag that on top, make the circle even smaller again. So then I've got those two sort of nested shapes. Just going to make them a bit bigger. So with this one, I want this to appear inset, and this one obviously I want that to appear on top. So I'm going to reverse these sort of drop shadows on this one, turn those off. With the inner shadow, it's currently making this white edge. I'm going to turn off use global light on that one and have it coming from the other edge. Then I'm going to put a bit of inner shadow, dark inner shadow, coming from the top there, just to give it that sense that it's this inset step. I'm going to drag this back in now so I can actually just... Did it let me? I just wanted to be able to drag, alt drag the pattern overlay, the color overlay. I could take the inner glow, and I don't want to mess with the inner shadow. And so just make that a smart object and just drag as well, alt and drag the blur over to that. Now that looks a bit uncanny because it's occurring in the shadow. Just going to take the longer shadows off that top one. And I can always click on any of these that have global light and actually affect the shadows, the distance of where the shadows are. So all right, there we go.